We have breaking news. Moments ago, the State Department released nearly 100 pages of records in response to American Oversight's lawsuit seeking a range of documents related to the Trump administration's dealings with Ukraine. You might have heard Rachel talking about this on her show. Those documents have just been released. And joining us now by phone is Austin Evers, the executive director of ethics watchdog group American Oversight. Austin, thank you for joining me. I'm just looking at your press release about these documents. You're saying that among the records, they include emails that confirm multiple contacts in March of this year between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Rudy Giuliani, at least one of which was facilitated by the president's assistant, Madeleine Westerhout. Tell me what you are learning. I imagine you've just received these documents, so you haven't fully had a chance to go through them.
Thanks so much for having me on. Yes, we are still reviewing them. We wanted to get them out to the public as quickly as possible because transparency is so important on these issues.
And you put them up for download. You've made them available.
We did. They are available on our website, AmericanOversight.org, and you can follow our Twitter account, We Are Oversight. We'll be pulling out the snippets all night long and into the coming days. But you summarized it well. The documents show a clear paper trail connecting not just Rudy Giuliani to Mike Pompeo, but being connected by the Oval Office. President Trump's personal assistant, Madeleine Westerhout, serving as a conduit when Rudy Giuliani can't get through to Pompeo through, quote, regular channels. The president's personal assistant makes that connection happen. Based on the timing, which is around March of this year, it looks apparent that this was a connection to ensure that Rudy Giuliani's smear campaign against a sitting U.S. ambassador made it to Mike Pompeo's desk. This is just the first set of disclosures that American Oversight's litigation is going to expose. So a major message I want people to understand is that while the administration has refused to turn these documents over to Congress, the stone wall is cracking, and we're going to get regular document productions from the State Department and other agencies to make sure the truth comes out.
So I want to underscore this point. These are documents that the congressional investigation has been asking the State Department to produce. They've asked Mike Pompeo to do this. The State Department has refused to hand over this information. You then sued under a Freedom of Information application.
That's correct. If you look at these documents, you can understand why Mike Pompeo wouldn't want Congress to have them and why Congress has been complaining for the last 2 weeks that they haven't received, I believe the quote is, a single scrap of paper from Mike Pompeo. Here it is, are basically his call sheets showing multiple phone conversations with Rudy Giuliani at what looks to be the beginning of this scheme to smear the ambassador. We have other lawsuits already pending and soon more to come that are going to focus on different aspects of this scandal, from the OMB withholding aid to contacts later in time with Mike Pompeo and other senior officials. So, again, these are just the first disclosures, and for a first round to connect this scandal directly to the Oval Office seems pretty significant.
So when you say the first round of disclosures, have you got active other applications, Freedom of Information applications in right now?
We do. I don't want to give you an exact count, but it's in the dozens of open FOIA requests. I'll tell you what we've been doing. We listen to all the testimony and we read all these deposition transcripts. And if a witness describes a document and Congress says it doesn't have access, the Freedom of Information Act means that we can get it. We can sue for it, and we're going to force it out into the open. And if it takes past the Senate impeachment trial to get all the evidence out, we're going to keep fighting for it.
Let me ask you this, though. The State Department obviously has some reasoning. The executive branch offers reasoning as to why they won't provide this to Congress. And for guys like me, you think, wow, they must have thought this through. Someone must have explained to somebody why they can't release it. You are obviously under Freedom of Information getting someone to disclose this. I want to just read from your press release where you say that American Oversight could obtain these documents, establishes that there is no legal basis for the administration to withhold them from Congress. That's a simple statement, but it's kind of remarkable. If you can get them, why can our elected officials not get these documents?
The reason is obstruction. The only reason that a document that a citizen like me and the members of my team can't go to Adam Schiff or even Devin Nunes is because of obstruction. And it shows the power of the courts, again, coming in to tell the president and his allies that they have to follow the law, even if they don't want to turn things over to Congress. So, I don't know what to say about whether the State Department and the administration should have anticipated this. They probably should have looked at the articles of impeachment against former President Clinton and President Nixon. They include obstruction charges.
Yep.
And I think the White House should ask itself, should it be pursuing a total obstruction strategy if that obstruction of justice is not even going to be effective?
And to be clear, American oversight has no special standing. You are, as you just described yourself, a citizen. You are a group of
I think
people.
We're pretty good litigators, but no, that's true.
Right. I mean, in other words, if you are doing this as an American citizen, as a group of American citizens asking for this information. You don't have unique standing why you should get this versus anybody else.
That is correct.
So why?
And now that we have extracted these documents, it means that they belong to the American public. They are public records. Anyone can read them, and they belong to you.
When you file this, you receive the documents from the office manager to the Secretary of State. That's actually one of the emails you've got. Where do you get these? Who says it's okay? When you file the application, who adjudicates that you are entitled to these documents?
When it works well, apolitical career civil servants collect documents and apply the law to determine what can be made public. Is it classified? Is it privileged? And they apply redactions and they release them. So for the last 2 weeks, we've seen dedicated civil servants defy orders not to testify to go up to talk to Congress. There are also unnamed heroes in agencies across the government who are going to apply the law and ensure that the Freedom of Information Act is not thwarted by this White House's efforts to obstruct. And frankly, American oversight, but really the public writ large, owes them a debt of gratitude for all the work that they do every day on this and many other issues.
I mean, that is kind of incredible, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think we need to completely illustrate what we're talking about here. Documents that members of Congress, congressional committees investigating the president asked the State Department for that were not turned over. You made Freedom of Information applications for, and you have received now the first tranche of these documents, 100 documents, about 100 pages worth of documents that illustrate a connection between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Rudy Giuliani as it related to Ukraine involving the president's assistant, Madeleine Westerhout. At least one of the documents contains that. So you have got information that until now the State Department and the executive have been stonewalling Congress from getting.
Adam Schiff says they haven't gotten a single scrap of paper. We just got more than that. But I should really underscore, that's not because Congress isn't trying to do its job. It's not because it's not asking for these. It's because the White House and the administration have decided to obstruct the impeachment inquiry. They don't have a plan to obstruct the Freedom of Information Act, which is backed by Article 3 courts. And it's a major hole in their strategy, and it's finally coming to pay off.
Austin, thank you for joining me. We look forward to looking through these documents and more that you get. Austin is the executive director of American Oversight. Jennifer Rubin and Tim Miller are standing by. They have been listening to everything that Austin Miller said. We're going to talk more with them after this final break. Stay with us. We have breaking news now. American Oversight, a group, has sued for Freedom of Information releases of documents that the State Department has now turned over. More than 100 documents have just been turned over to American Oversight. They can be found on americanoversight.org. However, I just checked, and that website appears to be down, probably because so many people are trying to find these 100 documents. They include emails that confirm contact in March of 2019 between the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump's lawyer Rudy Giuliani as it related to Ukraine. One of those contacts was facilitated by at least one, by the way, was facilitated by President Trump's assistant Madeleine Westerhout. The State Department has released these pages to American Oversight. American Oversight has immediately put it on its website so that everybody in the world can download it, and it appears that many people in the world are trying to download it right now. American Oversight has released a statement saying, we can now see why Mike Pompeo has refused to release this information to Congress. It reveals a clear paper trail from Rudy Giuliani to the Oval Office to Secretary Pompeo to facilitate Giuliani's smear campaign against a U.S. ambassador. If you were watching Rachel's show earlier tonight, you will know that a federal judge did give the State Department until midnight tonight, a late ruling today, to turn these documents over. They have turned the documents over now. American Oversight saying that they could obtain these documents establishes that there is no legal basis for the administration to withhold them from Congress. Jennifer Rubin and Tim Miller are back with us. They were with me. We were in the middle of a discussion when this all happened. Jennifer, this feels like a fairly substantial development because the State Department denied congressional requests, efforts, and subpoenas to turn over these documents. And a group of American citizens got it with a Freedom of Information application.
Absolutely. And when my ears perked up, it was when he said they have dozens of these out there. So every subject matter that we have been hearing about for the last 2 weeks may turn over more documents. This just goes to show you that once you start peeling back the curtain, all sorts of things come out. And Congress is going to be very interested in all of this. I think they're going to want to see all of these documents. They're going to want to have hearings on some of these, and they may lead to new witnesses. What's so significant about this is, remember what is going on in March. Rudy and his henchmen are trying to cook up all sorts of rumors to get rid of our anti-corruption fighting ambassador, Marie Yovanovitch, in Ukraine. Mike Pompeo is doing nothing to prevent that. Mike Pompeo refuses to put out a statement in support of that.
Of his ambassador. Marie Yovanovitch works for the State Department, and he's the boss of the State Department, and he won't protect his people.
Right. So is he facilitating? Is he helping Rudy Giuliani, or is he objecting to it? He certainly knows it's going on. And remember, that was the step, that was the predicate for then launching on this effort to essentially extort Ukraine, in addition to whatever other financial deals that Rudy Giuliani was pursuing. They had to get her out of the way.
Yeah.
This puts him right in the middle of this. I think he has extreme liability. And remember, he has not even recused himself from deciding whether to turn over these documents. It took a federal court to force him. So that is completely unacceptable. He's behaving in a completely inappropriate manner. He's a lawyer, and he should know his legal obligations. I think this is huge.
I think it's huge, too, Tim.
Look, here's the thing, Ellie. And this gets lost, right, in the back and forth and in the muck and the mire of trying to figure out all the details. But the biggest takeaway from the Sondland testimony was none of this was a secret. Like, this is the thing.
Right,
they were all
in on it,
yeah. Right? Pompeo knew it was happening. Pence knew it was happening. Mulvaney did. The president did. And the only reason that the administration has not just fallen back on the original Mulvaney press conference answer, which was get over it, is the president will just not allow it because of his ego. And so we have to go through this BS, this misinformation, where they try to pretend like there might not have been a quid pro quo, or they try to pretend like maybe this wasn't as bad as it looks. It is as bad as it looks. And eventually, the more information that comes out, we'll continue to see more details of that. And the question is, does that actually turn anyone? I think that's a political question.
That is a big question. That is a big question. But these are actually documents. And to Jennifer's point, American Oversight has said this is, quote, this is just the first round of disclosures. The evidence is only going to get worse for the administration as its Stonewall strategy collapses in the face of court orders. This was a court order. This is one of what he said are dozens of applications, more than 100 documents. Jennifer Rubin, Tim Miller, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.